Number one is really kind of simple. We're just not liked. Um, what we're talking about are, some of the harsh, toxic truths that we have to face as people who are autistic. And I got to add this very quickly. First of all, we're going to tie all these together at the end. We've got 11 of them. And secondly, we need to keep in mind that of the 8 billion some people who are residing on planet Earth at this very moment, there's not one single one of them who is liked by the other 8 billion. I mean, everybody has somebody who dislikes them. So we say that we are not liked, and for some reason we think, because we're autistic people, some people don't like us. That's a bad thing. That should not be. Well, that's the way it is. And I am a firm believer that the best way to deal with any issue, whether it's a problem, is to face it head on as reality. Denial doesn't accomplish anything. Being dismissive doesn't solve anything. If anything, it causes more problems than it does solve. And I don't know that this is a particular problem. It's just a reality that in this sense, we're kind of like everybody else, and that everybody doesn't like everybody else. Number two is we're really not all that important. Again, this is not just people with autism. It's everybody, but we need to keep in mind that just because we have autism doesn't make us special. That term special needs, I get it. I'm okay with it. But applying it to people with autism, what special need do I have? Am I really all that important? Am I really all that special? Well, yeah, I'm different from the people who live in the hive mind, and sometimes it makes it very challenging and difficult to socialize with those people on the level of their expectancy. But in my 70 plus years, I've learned a thing or two, and one of the things that I've learned that I'm sharing with you is it's not all that important. I mean, sometimes you got to relate to people, neurotypical people, and I call it who live in the neurotypical hive mind. There are many, probably thousands of different types of hive minds, any type of social group, And there are times when we've got to associate with those people because, we have to live in a real world. I guess if you want to go out and live in the wilderness somewhere, not my recommendation. Okay, I could do it for a while, but not permanently. We're going to have to socialize some, but aside from that, we're not all that important. Now, number three, this is, I think, a really good point. The people tend to overlook, and again, not just people with autism, but something we need to look at from an autistic perspective is we are not our possessions. Now, there are some, I've heard, tribal peoples in the past, maybe there's some still in the present, and they would eat animals to acquire their traits. So if they wanted to be brave, they would, eat a lion, I guess. If they wanted to be wise, maybe they would have fried owl meat. I don't know what did. But the point is, they would take on the traits of those critters that they had for dinner. Are we any different? Our sense of self-esteem comes from sometimes our possessions. And by the way, I've got no problem with having possessions. If you want to own a $25 million beach house in Florida, perfect okay with that. Just invite me down for a week so I can enjoy some of it. But yeah, I don't care how many classic cars you have. I'm perfectly okay with that. Just keep in mind that we're not our possessions because sometimes we feel like that we become better if we have better possessions. We become the thing, or the thing becomes us, or the thing defines us, I guess is a better way to say. So no, it's okay. Go ahead and have a flash car if you can afford it. Go ahead and live in $1 million house if you can afford it. Wear the nicest clothes you can afford. There's no problem with that until we allow those things to define us. We should be perfectly fine with what we got. The way that some people say it is, if you're not happy with what you got, you won't be happy with what you get. Now, my understanding is most autistic people already get this. They already understand it. But if you don't, it's something to come to terms with that, you're just who you are. You are not your possessions. And you can gather possessions. You can dress any way you want to dress to impress other people. if you so prefer, but just keep in mind, that's not you. You know, your clothes are not you, your car's not you, your house is not you, the neighborhood you live in is not you. You are you. Be happy with you. Be content with who you are. Number 4 is we are not our feelings and our thoughts. Now, that's important because people with autism especially, and I guess all 11 of these don't necessarily apply just to people with autism, but from an autistic's perspective, we're not our feelings. Sometimes we get depressed, sometimes we get discouraged, sometimes we get frustrated. I think let's throw anger in that group of emotions because of the way that we are often treated by neurotypical people in the hive mind. We don't get it. We don't understand their social order, and they don't understand why we don't understand. And so that creates the us versus them, or them really versus us. And it hurts. Let's don't deny it. Let's don't dismiss it. Sometimes it hurts, but let's keep in mind as we hurt that those hurt feelings, those thoughts, sometimes thoughts of revenge or sometimes thoughts of ruminating, that's not us. Let's be careful not to define ourselves by our feelings and thoughts the same way we don't define ourselves by our possessions. And number 5 is we are not without responsibility. And accountability, I should throw in there, that we need to be careful to be mindful that we are responsible for our thoughts and our actions, the things that we do, the way that we handle ourselves. And this has been a struggle for me my entire life, not taking responsibility for me. Now, I would always take responsibility for paying my bills, things like that. But when it comes to social interaction, I had this thing where I would allow, and this is part of being autistic, I think, I would allow other people to approach me. I would allow them to define or decide whether or not I would be accepted. And it's not easy for me to be the, what would you call it, the aggressor? It's not easy. But I learned, hey, let me be the aggressor, or let me be the person who puts my foot forward. Let me be the person who goes face to face. Now, it's very easy for most people in the hive mind. For me, it was terribly difficult. But on the other hand, I thought, am I being just a little bit selfish by waiting and allowing other people to approach me? Let me be the one who approaches others. It's cumbersome, it's awkward. Sometimes it's a disaster, I got to admit, but still, I'm going to take responsibility. And hey, if they don't like it, too bad. Number 6 is we are not without choice. Sometimes we as autistic people think that we're kind of locked into this mold and there is no choice in life. This is who we are. This is the way we are. We've been defined. You know, we've taken those tests online or maybe in a therapist office. Do you do this? Do you do that? And by the end of the quiz, the test, they tell us what percentage or how autistic we really are. We need to be careful to understand that we're not locked into those things. Now, neurologically, yeah, we have traits. Neurologically, yeah, we have aptitudes and attitudes that I think are immutable. They're not changeable, but by and large, we operate within a sphere of decisions. And we need to keep in mind that we're really not tied to a ball and chain called autism. We are tied down somewhat. We are within what I call my bubble. I can't seem to get out of it, but within that bubble still, I can move around some. I've got some choices. Number 7, likewise, we are not unaccountable. Or you can make that a positive and say we are accountable. So over my life, 70-some years, I've done some of the stupidest things. Now, I think some of the dumbest things I did was probably when I was like a teenager or preteen, because I was just awkward. I didn't know better. I would say things or do things or mishandle myself, or, you know, I didn't know. I just didn't know. And but still, I'm accountable, I think. I can't say, well, I was autistic, so it's not my fault. Yeah, actually, I am to be held accountable if I did something that was hurtful to other people. So, on the other hand, yeah, Probably if I were not autistic, I would not have said those things. I would not have done those things. I would have done something stupider, like people in the hive mind do, or maybe said something even worse. The truth of the matter is, I think autism has not so much caused me to do stupid things, and it has, but I think it has protected me from doing stupid things, primarily. And some autistic people may have a problem with this, but the peer pressure, yeah, I had peer pressure, but because I wasn't highly social, that peer pressure didn't motivate me because I didn't have the opportunity to do all those stupid things that teenagers do. And moving on into adulthood, still, I'm human and I make human mistakes, and a lot of those things are driven by autism, but still, I'm not going to use autism as an excuse. I'm going to hold myself accountable. And I've made mistakes, done dumb things that other people never caught. I caught them. And I'm going to live with them, and I'm going to own them. Yeah, I'm going to own them. I made that mistake, and why do you want to do that? Why can't you? Now, let's just blame autism. How are you going to learn? I mean, how are you going to change? And we can't say, well, I'm autistic, I can't change. You know, we just talked about that. We're without choice. We do have choices. So let's be careful to be accountable for the things we say, the things we do, even if they're driven by autism. Number 8 is we're not exceptions to others' motives. Sometimes we have this frame of mind that other people mistreat us because we are autistic, and they do quite frequently. Go back over your life, back when you were a kid in school, probably it was severe. Most people who are autistic tell me that high school was extremely difficult for them. The teen years, to me, it was kind of the other way around, where high school was kind of floated through it, almost literally, Somebody told me one time that they asked me if I was on drugs because of that autistic mindset, that poker face that people with autism often have, or as therapists like to call it, the flat effect. But still, I'm not going to be an exception because I can't be an exception to the motives of others, and the motives of others are usually nefarious. They're not good. And to say, well, I'm autistic, so people ought to treat me better because they need to have empathy and feel sorry for me. Yeah, well, they should. Not because I'm autistic, but because that's just the human thing to do. That's the way to be humane. But they don't. And we're not exceptions because we are autistic. We need to accept that toxic truth. Number 9 is we're not a victim. We're not victims of fate. Now notice I'm saying we are. I'm not saying you are. I'm including myself in all these things. I was a pastor for 12 years, and one thing I should have done, but I didn't when I was a pastor, is I should have gotten a mirror and put it on the pulpit facing me, so when I spoke to the crowd, I would be reminded that I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to us, because a lot of times, speakers will say, you need to do this and you need to do that, as if he is exempt or she is exempt, as if they are somehow speaking from a pedestal down to the little minions who need their wisdom. Now let's talk to all of us, including me, But we are not a victim of fate, that everything is kind of timed away and we can't really help it. Now this kind of goes along with number 6, is we have choices and we're not stuck into a rut of fate. The things are going to happen to us and there's nothing we can do about it because we are autistic. One thing I've learned in life, and when I was younger, I would tend to let things happen because my perspective of my environment, wherever it was kind of like being on a movie set or watching a movie, and I was not a participant. I was an observer, and I still do that somewhat. And, the movie script was written, it's been filmed, and it's been produced, and I'm just watching it. That was the way that I observed life. But as I got older, I say, you know, that's really not the way things are. Even though I'm still stuck in that mode, I have to think my way out of it and realize, nah, this is not fate. This is not a movie. I can interact more so than I think I can. Number 10 is this. We're not fearless. Maybe I'm talking to the wrong crowd here, because how many people with autism think they are fearless? Most autistic people I know are very self-conscious, and they express that several ways. Many of us will withdraw, and many of us do the opposite. We become more aggressive to overcome that sense of being fearful. And we need to understand that, well, you know what? That comes with the territory. That we can't get to the, at least I can't. Maybe you can, but I can't get to the place where I am without self-consciousness, without fear, without feeling intimidated, without feeling that I am somehow not up to par with everyone else. And so I just feel that intimidation, you know, that fear. It's there. And I'm not going to pretend that it's not there, so I can deal with it. If I pretend that it's not there, I can't deal with it. If I acknowledge it and say, there it is, I'm not without fear, then I can deal with those feelings of inferiority and feelings of intimidation or whatever. Number 11 is we are not without disappointments. I've talked about this before, and this, by the way, is our last point, and we're going to tie this all together in just a second. But life is not what we expect it to be or what we want it to be. Remember a moment ago I talked about that $25 million mansion on the ocean, maybe at Florida or maybe on a private island? Yeah, I'm okay with that. But I'm not going to be disappointed if I don't get it. Are you? No, that's way out of range. But sometimes there are things that are within range. And we're disappointed because we don't get them. Approval, I guess, is probably one of the most common. We get disappointed because we don't get approved. Well, that's a toxic reality. We're not going to be approved by everybody, and because we are autistic, the cold, hard truth is, the harsh truth, toxic truth is, that we're going to be disappointed if we expect others to accept us. So let's accept the fact that we're not necessarily accepted, which is a throwback to number 1. All right, let's tie this all together. Now, what we're talking about here is being selfish versus being self-responsible. There's a huge difference. Now, let's imagine ourselves as the owner of a company. And the company, or you could call it a nonprofit organization, whatever, but it's called Me Incorporated. And guess what? I'm in charge of it, nobody else. So I need to take ownership, and as an owner, I need to provide honest evaluation. You know, it's the same thing, buy a house, buy a car, buy a toaster, whatever you buy. Chances are, buy something on Amazon, don't you kind of shop around and make sure that you want to get the best deal or the best thing, the thing that operates? You're going to take ownership, so you're going to evaluate it before you do. Well, we have ownership. Nobody else owns us. Literally, nobody else owns us. We own ourselves. And we need to learn to treat ourselves like we own ourselves. Take ownership. So think of yourself as the owner, CEO of Me Incorporated. Okay, where am I going to go from here? That's how we tie all these things together. This is me. This is my responsibility. This is not being selfish to take control of myself. And if somebody else thinks it is selfish, that's their problem. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you got something out of the video. Don't forget to leave a comment on the comment section, join the conversation, and we will see you all next time.